Name's Jack Dumoulin, 24 years old. We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs across the country. Just as we've scaled to 8.5 million followers in 3 years doing this process, you learn a lot of things on the business side, so I'll touch on that. It's the quality factor. Once you build that base, you really have to put yourself in a different ballgame. For us, it was a switch from quantity to quality.
Jack Dumoulin, welcome to our show, man. Super happy to have you on, bro. One of my good homies out here in Austin, and along with my brother, and we're just super happy and super blessed to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. I know y'all been crushing it, getting DNA off the ground, going crazy. So I'm ready to have some conversation. Let's get to it.
Oh man, I'm excited, dude. This is gonna be a good one. For our audience, a lot of people are gonna see a familiar face. Maybe not the face, right? But the person that does all the work on that back end of the School of Hard Knocks. So before I give too much away, let's go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do.
For sure, man. Name's Jack Dumoulin, 24 years old. Grew up in Washington, D.C. For about 10 years before I moved out to Austin, Texas to go to the University of Texas, hook 'em. And, from there, my transition to D.C. to Austin, wanted to become an entrepreneur. And kind of fast forward to today, we run a channel called the School of Hard Knocks. My brother and my friend Josh and I, my brother James, my friend Josh. You all probably know my brother James because he's the face of the channel. So basically what we do is we interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs across the country. And in about 3 years, we've grown the channel to about 8.5 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and now LinkedIn.
That's awesome, dude.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations on that first thing. And then so I know you said that, started off on DC, but let's bring it back because obviously I know a little bit more about you. My brother knows a little bit more about you. Take us really just back, prior to DC. How was that life growing up? I know you had lived in other countries as well. What if you don't mind sharing a couple of things like that?
For sure, yeah. So my brother and I are from a military family. My dad was a colonel in the Army, and so because of that, we traveled all over the world growing up before we settled in D.C. when I was about 11, 12 years old. Basically the first half of my life was just traveling from city to city, whether in the U.S. or out of the country. Out of the country internationally, had the pleasure to live in South Korea for 4 years. At the time, wasn't really wild about it. 6 years old, moving to Korea, you get kind of, you miss things like McDonald's and Disney Channel and things like that, but looking back on that experience honestly is what shaped me to be the person I am today, for sure, or at least one of the experiences. And just blessed to be able to, from a young age, experience another culture, another language, another food, customs, and being over in a foreign country like that, it allows us the opportunity to be able to travel a lot easier to a lot of other foreign countries. So say probably now I'm at around 22, 23 countries that I've traveled in my entire life, and majority of them were from the time when I would say 14 or younger. It's probably the majority of them. So at a young age, getting exposed to a lot of different cultures and a lot of different backgrounds and new experiences, I think that's been part of why my brother and I have been able to interact with so many phenomenal people that we've brought to our channel, the School of Hard Knocks.
That's cool. And when it comes to obviously your experience living in South Korea, I feel like that's not something that a lot of people would know about you and your brother, right? Especially your brother being, the face of the channel. But even as your friend, I had no idea up until the 6th or 7th time that we hung out that you lived in South Korea. That's so cool. Tell us a little bit more about that experience. What was, the day-to-day look like? Where was the relationship with you and your brother? Because obviously now that you guys work together, what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, for sure. So my father was actually the garrison commander for the military bases that we lived on in Korea. So I lived on an American military base. So it was still, culture was a little bit Americanized just because, they make the military bases try to make it similar to the U.S. as terms of living. Mm-hmm. But of course, we could go outside of the base and experience the great Korean culture. One of my favorite stories is I love seafood. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I love seafood is when I was 7, my dad got invited to, at the time we lived on Camp Humphrey, South Korea, which is the largest military base outside of the U.S. in the world. And so he was the garrison commander for that. So he got invited to a celebration that they were having in the city that day. And what they do is they block off all the main roads in the city and they just put tables down for all the citizens to just come sit down and enjoy a meal. And what they had that day was mussels, clams, oysters, all you can eat. And so here I am, 7 years old, just eating like bowl after bowl of like mussels and clams. And it was just amazing. So those are the kinds of experiences that like, now I love seafood. Every time I go out, I try to order calamari. So,
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see that now.
How often do you go back to like those moments? Like now being, you know, in your 20s and whatnot, like how often do you look back and think about those things where it's like, dang, like I did that. Like that was actually part of my life.
For sure. Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is just a difference in mindset. Really because for us, one of the things, and we actually got the pleasure to talk with Justin Waller, and we did a podcast with Justin Waller, and one of the big takeaways that we got from that podcast is that, man, people really need to get out of their hometown.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to move, but go broaden your horizons. This world is God gave us this great planet, this earth with so many different cultures and places and scenes to go see. And so many people, they just are in the little bubble in their hometown.
Amen.
And they're a small group of friends and their, you know, their family. And sometimes that can be good, but sometimes that comes with negative influences too. If you don't get out and broaden your horizons, like if you're a young guy, and you want to be ambitious, be an entrepreneur, like get out of your hometown, go to the cities where people are young, you know, guys and girls are crushing in their 20s. They're driving a Lamborghini. See what's possible for yourself, and it broadens your horizons and makes you think a little bit different. For me, getting that experience at a young age, you know, I just really got to see that like the world is my oyster. Yeah. I mean, my grandfather was a surgeon, and he always used to say like, you two boys are on a mission. The world's your oyster. From when the time I was like 6 years old, because he saw greatness in us for a long time, and those sort of influences, conversations, and experiences like going out into the city and being able to like try seafood in a foreign country for the first time. You realize there's just so much more out there, and you have more for yourself. So it's like I got to hustle to be able to have those experiences for myself as an adult with my family when I have it someday.
That's awesome, dude.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, talking about like leaving your hometown. My brother and I, you know, we're from a small town out in Illinois suburb, and I think right away he was in high school when he first moved out of the city, and I was just finishing up with middle school, and man, I think from where we came from, we kind of made that decision really quick. Now that you said that, and like now I'm like kind of looking back at that, we made that decision really quickly to just get up and leave our hometown. Because I think we just wanted more, we wanted to experience more of life, and that ultimately brought us here, you know, sitting on this podcast with you.
And a lot of that I would like to attribute to our parents, right? Because when it comes down to it, I think the common denominator between him and I was that we were really raised to be men from a very early age, taking care of ourselves, doing things that we have to do. My dad always used to say, do what you got to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And while that didn't always apply to my homework and getting stuff in assignments done, as a lot of people famously know me for, but you know, it was do what you got to do now so you can do what you want to do later. So we grew up at a very early age. A lot of it because, you know, it was trained in us and we were taught to do so, but a lot of it too just because of circumstances. But I feel like, relating it back to you, it sounds like a lot of that was the growing up too, right? And whether you knew it or not at such an early age, living in a different country that isn't your own, and, you know, trying to find, you know, get accustomed to the new culture and all of those different things. I mean, that makes someone grow up really fast, and especially with the moving from place to place from a very early age, and then all the way up until obviously you went to college and stuff like that. That can't be easy. We know what it looks like and the toll it takes, but obviously, so tell us a little bit more about after that. So, like, you guys come back to the States. What's that relationship with you and James looking at that point, right? Are we like, at that point, all right, man, we're going to get into business together? Or it's like, dude, don't even talk to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at the time, I moved back to the States when I was probably around 11 or so. Okay. And James is 2 years younger than me, so he was 9. So we were still, like, super young. And so really a lot of our foundation did come from living in D.C., and I do attribute a lot of success to our parents just like making us be very disciplined for things in school. Like, you know, I personally, I've never gotten except for college in grade school up until like I left for college, I've never gotten less than an A in my life.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude.
And so, and I know a lot of my entrepreneur friends, like they're the opposite. Like they're
That's
like,
me. That's 100%
I was
me,
terrible
yeah.
at school, and low key, and I love it because it's just, I'm glad, and I think it's a part of the story because that sort of trajectory of always getting an A, it sets you up for like the corporate route in a way because you're always going to school, you're doing what you're told, things like that. And it's really interesting how like I had a complete switch. Because I mean, I did well in college, but like I would definitely was more focused on like entrepreneurial ventures outside of that. Regarding me and James, I mean, we shared a room in Korea, so him and I have always been close. He'll be the best man at my wedding for sure.
That's awesome.
And him and I just have always been hustling, man. We always just had we had this kind of hashtag that on every social media post with the two of us that we would put, it was always hashtag yep the Dumoulins. It's like, oh yep, the Dumoulins again, doing it again. Every award possible, whether it was Boy Scouts, whether it was baseball, whether it was school, it was always the Dumoulins at the top of the food chain, no question. And like we try to keep that mentality all the way through up until now with School of Hard Knocks. It's just always just been instilled at us, whether it was our parents or just our own work ethic together to just kind of be a team and go. So kind of going into business together was a no-brainer for us, for sure.
Cool. For sure. Yeah, no, that's great. And being an entrepreneur in college, how did you take that approach, and how did you balance that? You know, being a student and then being an entrepreneur.
For sure. So to give people some context, so the reason why I became an entrepreneur versus like the straight A kind of square, way was just because I always saw greater for myself. I mean, even in baseball, like I've competed in the Little League World Series twice, which is like a fact that most people don't know.
I had no idea, like straight up, like you went to Williamsport.
I went, not Williamsport, is the older version. So it was like the 15, 16 senior league,
gotcha.
senior league
No,
level.
I know exactly
now
what you're talking
Williamsport's
about.
is
That's
not,
awesome.
Not as, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Essentially,
no,
it's
of
just
course.
Super
the older
familiar
one's
with
not as televised. So so I already kind of competed on a world stage, but when I was 17, I had the pleasure to compete for the world championship of Microsoft Excel.
Yes.
Which I know that sounds a little bit different from like what we've been talking about on this podcast. It's a little out of left field, but like I said, played baseball my whole life, and always was kind of the stat nerd. Always, the A guy in school. So every school project I did, I was always in the math category. Every school paper I wrote about was about sports stats or numbers, and I would always clean house. And so for me, it was just like I just knew Excel like the back of my hand. And so I figured I might as well go get certified in like Adobe and Microsoft and everything because I thought it looked good for my resume, things like that. So, you know what I mean? So, and my teacher was just like, hey, you qualified for like the National Excel Championship that Microsoft puts on every year. And I was just,
nuts.
It was,
how many people were a part of that?
yeah. So, the world competition in total, the amount of people that submitted to get qualified for the competition was 2.2 million people. And so the national one was the top like one or two from every state in the country. So it was like top like 150, 200 like students that competed, went to the national competition, ended up winning that competition, and then went to the world one to represent the U.S. against 54 countries, like all the winners from around the world, and ended up winning that competition.
That's nuts,
Become the-
dude. That's so cool.
Absolutely insane. You know,
I before we get
Yeah,
into
go
that real quick, but I do want to say, like, it's just crazy, that the game truly is for everybody. The entrepreneurial game is truly for everybody. A lot of the things, like, now you get podcasts and people are sharing a little bit more of their stories, and everybody's like, well, my story, like, I did this, or I had to go through this, or I wasn't good in school. And like, that's what people are looking for to motivate them. But I think it does do a disservice to the people that are like that type A, right? Those people that 100% like yourself did all the right things in school, that went the right route. Like, oh, this person's going to be the perfect pencil pusher one day, right? That's just not true.
Yep.
The game truly is for everybody. But yeah, I want to hear a little bit more about this competition.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I was listening to like a past podcast that you were on, and you related it to like Moneyball because you were super big into baseball, and you really saw like all of the analytics that went into it. Where's that? Could you further explain that for us here on the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the movie Moneyball. If you haven't seen Moneyball, like crazy if you haven't, but go watch Moneyball. I think it's, even if you're not a sports or a baseball fan, like go watch it. I think that movie's fantastic. It's well done. But nonetheless, I mean, just like I kind of said, like always was into like the stat side of baseball. Like I would come home from practice, and before I started homework, I would turn on like MLB Network while I'm doing my dinner, and I'd be watching like Brian Kenny breaking down the stats, like Harold Reynolds and Greg Amsinger, Dan Plesac. They're just going back and forth on MLB Tonight, just talking about everyone's stats. And I was always so fascinated with it. I would always just kind of like pull Excel up and crunch my stats, like different baseball stats. And so I just learned the platform of Excel like kind of over the years, just through something I was passionate about, and ended up allowing me to get this skill to be like one of the best in the world, if not, I mean, technically the best in the world at a particular skill that ultimately transformed in myself into business. What's funny is like when I went to the world competition, it was in LA. And so everyone that's close to me knows I'm a huge Dodgers fan.
Yeah.
And I literally skipped the opening ceremonies, like the first half of it, because I went to a Dodgers game the
That's
first night.
awesome, dude.
And I literally went to the competition just to like
still won.
for the
Yeah.
for the experience. I was like not even planning to win, and just went and the American guy, like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
late to the open.
Yeah.
No, I got to see the Dodgers play, man.
No.
It was my
Yeah,
first
come
time.
on, man.
Yeah, I went with my mom, and there were only like a couple seats left in the stadium behind home plate, and we were like, "F it, dude."
Yeah.
So it
let's just
sounds
get
like
'em.
it was a surprise that you won.
It was.
So was
Yeah.
it a surprise to like everybody around you, or was it a surprise just to you? Like, I want to know what your teacher said when she was like, "Oh yeah, you qualified
Yeah.
for this
Yeah,
thing."
it was just. I mean, because I was just always like, you know, baseball was my life. Outside
Yep.
school was my life, and then outside of school, it was baseball.
Yep.
But in those two aspects, I always tried to go for greatness.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And this thing kind of fell in my lap, and I think that just is like as a result of like doing hard work. I mean, like a lot of people like that achieve great success in life, they always have people from their hometown that are small-minded that'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, that person's so lucky, like they drive this car, they live in this house. But people, like, I personally think if you put the work in, your luck gets 10 times greater.
100%.
100%.
So
I agree with that.
100%. That's awesome, dude. When it comes to the college, right? So now here we are at college, right? We decided we were going to be an entrepreneur. What did the beginning of, maybe not Hard Knocks look like, but what did the beginning of that entrepreneurial journey look like? Tell us a little bit more about that.
absolutely. And I love that question. I know that you kind of hinted at that at first, but I wanted to give people context in there. So I had a bunch of companies reaching out to me after I won that competition to do work for them.
Okay.
And I'm only 17. So it was just kind of like, this is kind of overwhelming. I low-key think that as a 17-year-old, I could get taken advantage of from these companies.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to quickly like learn about like contracts and legal entities and things like that. So ended up, as soon as I turned 18, I just kept in conversation with a lot of those companies. They had reached out and just said, hey, like I'll start work when I turn 18. I filed my first LLC. Pretty much then took on a few jobs. Probably the most interesting company that reached out to me was a company called Buc-ee's. For those of you that aren't familiar with, it's probably the largest gas station in the world if you've ever been to one of their locations. And the CEO basically wanted me to come visit their headquarters. Yeah. I tried to pitch him on him being a client of mine for this new business that I just started, but he was just like, "No, I don't really need to be your client, but you know, I'd love for you to do some work for me, and in return, like when you're not in class at UT, like you can come down and you can." You know, learn from me here in the office, just do some analytic work for me. I was like, you know, this guy's worth $500 million. I'm going to take that deal.
Yeah.
I'm going to take
sure,
that deal.
for
So,
sure.
and that was kind of the start of it, was being able to learn from somebody like that. Like the work that I did with them was good stuff. But to be honest with you, like always kind of realized I was like, I really like that entrepreneur side of me, and I didn't really like the corporate environment, but I kept going there every day just to be able to learn from somebody like that. And so I was able to take on some contracts outside of that gig in school.
Yeah.
Really.
And real quick before we move on, do you think that pitching him helped you get that opportunity? Like working closer with him, like kind of being like, hey, listen, you could be one of my clients, and not, instead of just taking the job right off the bat.
I think he had a motive.
Okay.
Me going in there already. I think
All right.
he was just like, I want this kid to come work for me, because he's
awesome.
a talent. He's a talent shark, and
Yeah.
honestly, like learning that is one of the things that I've learned from him is
Yeah.
that like and other people in some of our conversations through School of Hard Knocks with a lot of the entrepreneurs we've talked to, is that like in order for you to scale your company, the same people that got you to 10K a month aren't going to get you to 100K a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same people that get you to 100K a month aren't going to get you to 250K a month,
I like that.
or you know what I mean? So as you scale from like 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, 7 to 8 figures, one of the biggest takeaways we've learned is that you got to constantly be looking for that A player talent. I even saw this Mr. Beast, if anybody that's watching this hasn't looked at this, but Mr. Beast literally just released a 36-page document. It got leaked of his entire onboarding process and
I
how to
saw that.
succeed at Beast Production. I highly recommend everybody go read it, because he's the #1 content creator in the world. So
I think they sent that in our community chat on
Yeah.
Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I peeped that and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, dude, I definitely got to read this.
But sorry, continue.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that I learned from him, was even in that first meeting with somebody like that, is like, he's a talent shark. He wants
Yeah.
to bring the best people to the company. Whenever he had big people come in and meet, and I literally worked right next to him. I didn't have a cubicle or nothing. My desk was at his desk. When he wasn't there, I got to work at the CEO of Buc-ee's desk. And
That's
so,
crazy.
whenever he'd bring big people, he'd always brag. I got the Excel champion in the office.
Yeah.
Because it's a power move.
Oh,
he loves.
100%.
He's like, look at this talent
This
that I
is the guy.
snagged
This
right
is
here.
my show pony
Yeah.
that I can
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like with like as we grow our team and our employees and things like that. Like if we have like a player on our squad, whenever we meet new people, I'm just like look at this. Like we have the best videographer, we have the best community manager, we have the best account manager, and they're going to be taking care of you today. That's how we treat like all our clients and all the people that we interview and we work with is just like, hey, like you have the best service possible because we hire the best people, no question. And so to get kind of back on track about like the entrepreneur side of things, so like those are the little things that kind of added up that's kind of brought us into School Hard Knocks. When COVID kind of happened, the owner of Buc-ee's kind of stepped away, and things kind of slowed down there in regards to like my workflow and things like that. And I think they also wanted more of like a full-time position, and I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
It's like, do you go corporate or do you have this entrepreneur itch that you got to scratch and go deeper on? And I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so ended up parting ways. And I just realized it was like, hey, like I have this Excel thing. It's cool. It wasn't like going crazy, but I was still like having the entrepreneur side where I'm picking up a project here and there, learning how to write contracts, learning how to take sales calls.
Yeah.
And kind of around the coincide where my only income stream is that we started the idea for School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in the timeline. This is around late 2020, 2021, early 2021 is kind of where we're at timeline wise, entrepreneur wise.
Now, real quick, do you think that with that journey and something you went to college, some people probably wouldn't go to college; they would just probably go in all of that. Are you still happy that you went and pursued like a higher education?
So this is my, like in a nutshell, my thoughts on college. For me personally, me going to University of Texas forced me to get out of my hometown and go pursue something greater in the horizons out there. So I will always be thankful for my decision to go to college, even though as an entrepreneur, I don't necessarily need it, and I don't think I'll ever really use the degree that I got there.
Yeah.
But it did help me with that pivotal point that I think every entrepreneur that they got that itch, you gotta get out of your hometown and go see it. So it forced me to leave.
Had to ask that,
yeah. Otherwise, I probably would have been. I think God did that for me. But God was just like, hey, like we're gonna make your parents very adamant. You got to go to college, so we're gonna send you on that way. Otherwise, I probably would have stuck in my hometown and just tried to build my business from the ground up there.
Of course.
But I mean, my father was in the military, so I had a great opportunity to go to college with like no debt, things like that. So that's why it wasn't a huge deal for me to walk away. I think where it comes for a lot of people is if like they have a ton of debt and they're going to college for something that doesn't necessarily require, like if you have this love to be a doctor and you love serving people, then obviously, you know, what doctor do you want serving you that didn't go to med school?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, of course. And was there ever a moment when you were in college that you were like, I'm just going to drop out?
All the time. All the time. All the time. But I mean, that's where those influences from my parents kind of come in. And to be frank with you guys, at the time, I wasn't doing like crazy numbers on my own to be able to like go outside of college and just try to do it on my own. It's just kind of around, we started making a lot more money towards my like last semester. So it was like, you might as well just finish. But I think if you're an entrepreneur out there and you're in college, you know, and you want to be an entrepreneur, that, you know, it's not necessarily necessary to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're in high school and you want to go and go to college, it better be for something that the degree is necessary for, like accountant, lawyer, doctor. Yeah. But if you have this itch to like go into the business world, I would say go find the person that you want to become, the entrepreneur, and pitch them on working for them for 90 days for free.
Yeah.
And if they hire you at the end of it, that's great. Learn and be a sponge, kind of like how I was able to do with the Buc-ee's guy.
Yep.
But if they don't hire you, at least you walked away with knowledge and connections, and you're at a place where you could potentially start your business in that industry at that point because you actually learned from somebody that's crushing it. So
yeah, I mean, no, that's all huge. Let's circle back to now you're wrapping up college. You went to UT. You ended up sticking with it. How did that kind of come about with you getting into business with your brother?
Yeah, so my brother James followed me 2 years later down to UT Austin, and literally the week before we left to move to Texas for good, my parents ended up moving out of DC as well. Like they got out of the hometown sort of frame. Yeah, they left to come to Texas because I mean their 2 kids were going to Texas. They didn't need to be there anymore. So we literally had a week left before we were supposed to leave, and just so happens like an old friend of mine, Josh Smith, was just moved into a house like up around the block from my high school best friend, and had saw on Snapchat map that I guess my friend was there, and so he hit him up. He's like, "Hey man, I just saw I live around the corner from you. Like, what are you doing?" And my friend was just like, "Oh yeah, like the Dumoulins are over at my house. I don't know, like, would you want to come over and say what's up?" And so he came over, and we're just James, myself, and our third partner Josh, and we're just talking and talking and talking. We realized like we're some of the only people in this area, in this suburb, this hometown, that really think outside of just the getting the corporate job and going and working in DC after college. And so we're like, maybe we should do something together. Hung out one more time before we left, and coming back, and then Josh hit the two of us up and was like, "Hey, like I know we talked about potentially doing something. Like, let's do something." And we started an account called Hard Knocks Call of Duty, which most people don't know. Like, this is like super like bare bones
That's
of the start of
Was
school
that,
Hard
like,
Knocks.
streaming? Like,
Yeah, we tried to do like a faceless YouTube channel and a
Okay.
faceless TikTok about like gaming and Call of Duty, because Josh was honestly really into that at the time, and we just happened to call it Hard Knocks Call of Duty. And we did it for about 3-4 months, grew to 10K. We're like, guys, none of us are into this at all.
Yeah.
This isn't fulfilling or lining up with us at all. We just weren't super motivated to it. And we switched over as, okay, well, what are the three of us motivated about? Because we're working really well together. Like, we know we want to do something in social media. Like, what should we do? So we're like, let's just make an account called School of Hard Knocks, Learning from Life's Hardest Lesson. Let's just talk about our experiences in business. And so this is the formulation of James, myself, and Josh are now business partners. We start making videos about our own business experiences. We would do a system where each of us would have a day. And so most people might get shocked like this, but we would post 3 to 4 times a day on the social media platform, on each social media platform. Basically, if it was your day, you had to come up with 3 TikToks to post that day about business. It could be about your own experience. Like, one of my videos was I took $1,000 and I invested it into crypto, and this is what it'll do. Then I made another video about how Michael Jordan got cut from his high school team and how that's motivating. Then I did another video where I just took a picture of the Austin sky, like a video of the Austin skyline, put a motivational quote over it. So all like the content strategy was all over the place. And I'll circle back to this a little bit later because I think it'll help a lot of people watching. But we just did that every single day. We never missed a day. If it was 11 o'clock, then the other 2 members of the group would be hitting up the group chat, just like, dude, get your shit together and get your 3 posts up. I don't care if it's at 11:20, 11:40, and 12. But get your posts up for the day, because we're not missing a day. We're going to pedal to the metal. So grew that to about 25,000 followers. And we came across a kind of a threshold where we're like, guys, most people that are watching our content right now don't give a shit about 3 20-year-olds talking about business that haven't built $1 million company yet.
Yeah.
And we were just like, what if we actually went and interviewed people that have played the game 20, 30, 40 years of business experience and got what they had to say? And so that's where we made the pivot to start doing interviews on School of Hard Knocks. So,
That's awesome.
And you guys started out here in Austin, right? Interviewing people out here in
Yep.
Austin, and then made your way to expand.
Absolutely. So yeah, we started it when we were at Texas. And so you were kind of asking earlier about being an entrepreneur in college. You know, a lot, especially during my last 2 semesters when I didn't have wasn't doing the Buc-ee's thing anymore, and I was just all on my own. I was like, well, shit, all these other people I'm going to school with, they're going to get a job lined up. My job, I have to create myself.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so my last semester at UT, it was James and I, and Josh was still in DC at the time, but he did a little bit more back-end stuff. James and I would go downtown Austin after class, after whatever, 3-4 days a week, and we would just do interviews for like 3-4 hours. So it was like class during the day, and then we're going downtown. We didn't party a lot. We rarely went out. Just kind of kept to our small circle of roommates. Some of them you guys know. Yeah. And we just really just like put pedal to the metal of like, hey, we got to make some shit happen. And once we started posting the interviews, just every single one was getting 100,000, 50,000, 25K, 250K, million views. And so it just kind of skyrocketed. And we're like, oh, this is what we're going to do after college.
And I would love to continue to go on that evolution of like what the School of Hard Knocks is and where you guys have grown today, because I know that there has been so much growth since then.
For sure.
But there is an element that I would love to touch on, because when I heard this story for the first time from you, I was super inspired. Super, super inspired. A lot of people just will sit here and they'll listen, and then we're going to clip this up and we're going to give it to you and we're going to put it on all the platforms, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, this is how I grew from this to this, and how we did interviews for 3 to 4 hours and reached 150, like all of these views. What was happening behind the scenes is what we really want to uncover here, right? I know that you and I were talking, you had some suffering that went throughout that real trials and tribulations. I want to kind of dive into that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, this is where it's hats off to my two business partners, Josh and James, because I mean, without them, it's pieces fall.
Yeah.
When one of the soldiers is kind of down. So I mean, for me, I would say probably about a year into like the business School of Hard Knocks channel, really sort of like us doing interviews. I would say, I think this is around like May 2022. Ended up developing an arrhythmia in my heart.
Yeah.
Didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but essentially it just my heart without medication was beating at like 170, 180 beats per minute, which the average human heart should be beating anywhere from 60 to 100. So it put me at risk for a lot of great stuff. And arrhythmia itself can't kill you, but it puts you at risk for stuff that can really put you in bad shape. And so, yeah, just one day, just out of nowhere, heart rate just shot up, and it stayed like that for 2 days. And I was just trying to rest, relax, not really sure what was going on. I did one push-up and almost passed out, which just like someone that's like usually active, that's not really right. Went to the doctor. They said you had an arrhythmia, and for about 4 months was trying everything in the book to try to get it to go back to normal, and medication. I eventually got medication to get it to go down, but the rhythm wouldn't go back to normal. And so ended up August 2022 having heart surgery. Not major, so they didn't like cut open my chest or anything, but they go through your legs, send catheters through your veins, and they go into your heart and they burn tissue. It's a procedure called cardiac ablation. And they're the success rate's very straightforward, but I mean, people sticking needles in your heart to burn tissue.
Always.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, but first one took like a champ, and then all the while came back, still building School of Hard Knocks, and we'll dive deeper into that. Yeah. But probably summer 2023, I did 75 hard for the first time because I was like, I really need to take my health and everything seriously. Once I felt at a place where I could work out comfortably, completed that. Super proud of that mission, and I was in some of the best shape I've ever been in my life. And then when that ended, probably about 2 months later, this was like November 2023, the heart condition returned, but in a different format. A little bit is on the other side of my heart, and tried medication and got the rhythm to stay normal. But unless I wanted to take medication that truly made me suffer from a day-to-day basis, because it's meant for like 65-plus-year-old heart patients, if I got off of it, then my heart would flip again. And I pretty much had surgery again earlier this year, January 2024, and that one put me through a mental ringer.
Yeah.
That one was where it was like I had to like really show that like my faith in God was very present in my life, because it's just like I just had so much uncertainty about my body as a 24-year-old that's active and is running a business and things like that. I'm like, what? Because the doctors couldn't tell me what's causing my problems. Yeah. They just wouldn't give me an answer.
And that's where the story really like came full circle, right? Where you shared that and you're sharing it now, but it all comes back to, that's when your faith really started being a key factor into everything that you're doing moving forward. I've said it to you. I've said it on this podcast plenty of times, but a lot of people I feel like go through this time where they know of God, like they know of somebody at a gas station, and when they need something, they'll go ahead and get it. But it sounds like at that point is when you really started to build that intimate relationship with God, and it was an integral part of your day to day and then success throughout.
Yeah, I was at a breaking point mentally. To be honest with you, I mean, it was just because this one was a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
The first one I took like a champ. I just thought like, oh, the odds of, hey, this one hiccup, I'll get through it. And then
boom, it happens the second time, and
then
they're like, well, why not 3, 4, 5 more times?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just have so much
uncertainty. I
uncertainty.
can't imagine what was going on, between the years.
It's tough because you just don't know, and it's just like, am I going to have to live the rest of my life like this? Yeah. Like, is this like the last heart surgery I'm going to have to get? Am I going to make it through? Like, this one was a little bit more intensive, like a lot longer than the first one. This was, they didn't just do one side, they did both of my legs. They had to go up from both sides, and they had to use a catheter to burn tissue in my heart. And just during that time and the additional mental struggle that it put on me, you know, that's where I really shout out like my business partners for taking care of everything, because I couldn't really travel, you know, just in a mental state, you're just not kind of the same person. And I mean, it put me at a mental breaking wall to where it was just like, hey, if I didn't have my faith in Christ, I probably would have lost it.
What were those steps that you took to get closer to God during those times?
Daily prayer, like constant prayer, and just an unwavering of just realizing that anxiety in and of itself is a lack of faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
And realizing that, like, hey, me being fearful for what's happening is not trusting God that he's going to take care of me. It's not trusting that, you know, we all know that tomorrow's never promised, but when we go to sleep, we have faith in God that you're going to wake up the next day.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it was just one of those things where I had to, that's where I really had to trust God. And my faith was really tested of just like, hey, are you going to sit here and every day just like get super stressed out about this and be super stressed on like your longevity and how much you have? Or are you just going to enjoy every single day that God gives you? And at the time, my favorite School of Hard Knocks interview that we've ever posted actually really helped me get through this. We interviewed a gentleman named Tony Stevens, and he had the advice he would give to his younger self was he pulled out a ribbon and he numbered it 1 to 100, and he tore off. He said, I'm 57, so I'm going to tear at 57, and I'm going to tear at 75 because that's when the average male lives to. And he held up the ribbon, and it was short compared to what the long version. He was like, this is all I have left.
Yeah.
And
That's
he said,
crazy.
live each day as a life in miniature. Live it on steroids because God is giving you a vote of confidence that this day is for you. So live it like you dream it. And from there on out, I just wake up every morning and go to sleep every night like, God, thank you for this day. Thank you for I don't care what happens today. Just thank you for the fact that I'm alive, I'm living, I'm well. Because most people, you know, I see all the time like NFL athletes, they get in car crashes, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, and you're just like, damn, like they had just so much to live for. I mean, even like Kobe Bryant was getting started in his second career, man.
Yeah.
When his tragedy happened, I'm just like, God's given me another day to prove myself and to really make something of this life. So I just need to appreciate it and not take it for granted. It helps me stay motivated to get work done and things like that as well. But nonetheless, my faith in Christ being tested, like I almost like, you know, it helped me get through that and move on to going back to myself, being able to just wake up every day and not worry about my health or anything like that. Cause I know God's got it.
Yeah. No, that's crazy story. And for anybody else that's out there that's going through something hard or something that's relatable to that, what's one piece of advice that you'd give them? Obviously, it's trusting in God, but what else? Or even if it is that one thing is trusting in God, how do they take that first step towards that?
Absolutely. So faith is super important. Putting your trust and faith in the Lord that everything's going to be okay. From a tactical advice and things that like can really help you is that you really got to understand that the things that you say to yourself and your thoughts, they feed off of one another. So if you're negative all the time, and this is really advice, this is why I say like you should get out of your hometown and your original circle, the things you grew up with, is because like especially if you have negative influences around you, it feeds off of each other in your head. And so if you're thinking negatively day in, day out, and day in, day out, it causes this habit and it just builds off each other to where that's just the state you're in. And so I don't know about you, but like you can't really get a lot of work done if you're thinking, woe is me, the world's over, I'm going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
But if you're thinking of just like, man, God help me get out of bed today. God help me, do this today. Even if it's small things, small wins, just appreciate it in your head. And it's the shifting framework and thinking. If you're thinking negatively right now, like your thoughts do matter. And so if you just try to transform everything to a positive, like for me, I had to talk to we interviewed this woman named Caitlin O'Toole. She used to be a commentator with Sports Illustrated. She works with like Mind Valley and Genius AI now. Her interview, Elon Musk retweeted our interview with her. It did 65 million views. And
Wow.
and her advice that she told me in person, because I got to talk with her in May, and she said that when you for me personally, like I would say I would feel tension in my chest and be like, oh shit, here comes the heart again, doing some bullshit. Where she was like, no, it'd just be like, hey, my heart is strong. You're strong. You're just a little anxious right now. You're tense. Just God's got me. Everything's good. You're just strong because you've been working your ass off. Like you're gonna get to. You're gonna rest later. Like be good. You know what I
So
mean?
talking to the heart.
Talking to
Yeah.
the heart, talking to talking to the negative aspects in a positive way and reframing it. It's
That's
all
awesome.
it's all reframe. I'm reading.
It's
I've
the
been-
one you feed, right? It's the wolf you feed.
The wolf you
Which
feed.
one's gonna win? The negative one or the positive one? It's whatever one you're gonna give the most food to.
I'm reading a book right now. I'm almost finished with it. It's really short. You can get it off TikTok. It's called "Don't Believe Everything You Think."
Okay.
And it teaches you to, like, Buddhist monks, the reason why they're so peaceful all the time is nothing happens to you in life. It's always how you react to it. Mm-hmm. They told the story of just like, it's never the first arrow that kills somebody. It's the second arrow of them thinking about the first arrow that drags them on. It's almost like, hey, you experience physical pain, but you don't have to have the mental pain associated with it if you reframe your thinking. For me, the reframe was that God made me stronger by sending me through those battles.
That's awesome, dude. And I'm so grateful that you shared and told us a little bit more about that story, and stuff like that is what people are listening will take.
Of course.
Of all the business things, that is by far the most important thing that we'll talk about today.
100%.
But obviously, we're here to learn a little bit more about the Hard Knocks and where you guys are at now and where you guys are growing to be. But so yeah, tell us. Obviously, we got towards the end of that 2022, 2023. But what's been cooking, and then obviously I would love to get into what you guys got coming up.
Absolutely, man. So again, for those watching School of Hard Knocks on all platforms, we interviewed the most successful entrepreneurs in the country, people just building amazing companies. And, it just started, my brother and I, and then our friend Josh working the back end, him and I would go and trade off. Like, I would do some interviews, James would do some interviews, and the other would film the other, and we would post 3 or 4 interviews a day, or just snippets from interviews. And it really taught us a lot about, you have to walk up, handle rejection. We got so much rejection at the beginning, but learning how to build credibility for ourselves. And just as we've scaled to 8.5 million followers in 3 years doing this process, you learn a lot of things on the business side. So I'll touch on that. And so at some point made the decision that, we need to really focus on branding. And so we had James just be the front man for the interviews. That's why James, you see in the interviews today, because in order for us to scale the business, you can't send 3 soldiers out there to do all the filming or else we had the opportunity to go to a mastermind in early 2023 with a bunch of 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. And they said, you guys need to not be focused on being a media channel. You need to be a media company. And so you could be a media channel where like all of you go out and you film for YouTube and you come back and you edit the videos and you put it up, and that's great. But what's your earning potential there? Yeah. You guys really need to maximize. There are media companies doing billions of dollars a year. You guys need to be on that trajectory. And so it really shifted our framework that was like, okay, so James, majority of the person that's doing the interviews, so we'll have him be the content creator. And then Josh and I will build the business on the back end. And some of the things that we built on the back end. So, and this is for anybody watching that wants to start a media company. This is really valuable information, I would say, is we have our media channel, our brand. A lot of the entrepreneurs that we interviewed, they don't have social media teams or people that are doing their social media, especially if they go viral on our page. Like, where are they going to sell? Like, who's going to be able to capitalize on all the traffic we send them? So we started a marketing agency. And so that's one additional revenue stream in regards to the ad revenue that the platforms bring us. And so we fulfill a content service for a lot of the entrepreneurs. And then in addition to that, we have a newsletter that we started. And then we just started a paid community for entrepreneurs where we bring a lot of the entrepreneurs that we speak onto our platform. And so Josh and myself handle a lot of the day-to-day for that. For those 3 aspects: agency, newsletter, community, as well as the brand partnerships for the main channel.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. And so that's crazy. I just want to go back a little bit. That 8 million, man, and what, 3.5 years did you say?
3 years.
3 years?
Yep.
3 year, yeah. That absolutely blows my mind. I think like the only people in my head that I could kind of relate that to is like, I think I texted James the other day. I was like, dude, you guys are doing some like Kardashian type numbers.
Yeah, we were in the car the other day.
Yeah.
He was like, bro, what?
I was like,
It's like Kim K doesn't even get that many.
I was like 38 mil in one day because that was your most recent one. And again, too, on something I had seen in the past, that was because I was doing some research. You did a podcast about 6 months ago, and that number was at 1.5, 1.8 mil. And to be sitting here today at 3.8 million within, I think, a matter of literally probably anywhere from 6 to 8 months, how do you make that jump from that number 1.5, even a million, right, to that close to 4? 4 million followers let's just talk about Instagram for now.
On social media?
Yeah, on social
Yeah.
media.
So brand is a big thing. It definitely helps that James is the sole content creator because he's the face of the channel. So when people see him, they know it's our video. It also helps we have our logo on the video as well. Those are some basic things. For us, it was a switch between from quantity to quality. I'm not saying that necessarily that change happened 6 to 8 months ago, but at some point on the journey, how I remember I used to say we posted 3 to 4 times a day.
Yeah.
Now we post maybe like a couple times a week on, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Reason being is because we switched to the quality. For us, because we have such this base, we realized if we post a video, it's going to get a lot of traction regardless. But how do you stand out like at this level? For us, we only post 10 out of 10s. And we actually got this from Mr. Beast because he has way more reach than we do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you learn from other content creators doing better than you? It's like for him, he's going to stress relentlessly before he puts out a video on, is this the best YouTube video possible? And so we do the exact same thing with our interviews and our reels. I think in the beginning, a lot of people, they get stuck in analysis paralysis, trying to make everything perfect. Your goal should just be trying to get as many at-bats in the social platforms in the beginning.
Yeah.
But once you get that base, and once you have some traction, your standard of content needs to go up. Mm-hmm. We will only post an interview if it's 10 out of 10. Even if we have to like jeopardize a relationship with somebody because they're mad their interview didn't get posted, it's just like, hey, well, first of all, you're going to cut the check.
Yeah.
But, to come on the channel, we're driving you this traffic.
Yeah.
But second of all, it's just like for us, our brand is the number one important thing. And so if an interview we do with somebody we don't watch it and we're like, that could get 10 million views, it's not going to go up. We're only going to put up a video if we think it has the potential to get 10 million views because of something the person said, the way it was cut, whatever. It's the quality factor. Once you build that base, you really have to put yourself in a different ballgame in regards to just like, hey, my standard of content really needs to go up to give people. And so I think we're always going to be that way. And the reason why we've gotten there to this point today is because of 2 factors. One is the consistency. I said like in the beginning, we posted 3 times a day and we'd always hit each other up like, oh, get your posts up. We're not missing a day. Because most people, they don't do that. Like they're just like, they post and they don't think how important it is. These content platforms will reward you for your consistency. But the thing is, you can't post for 30, 60, 90 days in a row, just the same thing not working. Most people don't know this. We'll probably hit 4 million followers on Instagram in the next week or so. Yeah. And we're at about 3,000 posts right now. When we started, we were at 200 posts and less than 50 followers. So most people don't, like, it was a grind day in, day out, posting. Most people will get discouraged. The reason why we ended up winning is because we posted every day and we were willing to pivot when we saw things needed to change. There was probably a month, good 2 or 3 months that we were stuck at 150K on Instagram. How did we get out of the plateau? We switched our interview framework up completely. Yeah. Same type of content. We just switched. We just pivoted. It's those little pivots that make all the difference, and you just have to constantly be innovating.
Do you remember what that change was when you guys were at 150?
Absolutely. I think is like we changed we experimented with a whole new set of questions on the hook. So we went back to experimenting our hooks a little bit differently. And we went back to that more organic style of video, kind of like the Daniel Mack style where he walks up to people in the car, things like that. And so we wanted to do that same thing as well.
Nice.
And that was kind of instead of just starting the interview static, we'll still do that nowadays with somebody if it makes sense, if it's a good organic standing interview. Yeah. But now we try to get that walk up interaction. And I think that's really taken us to the next level. It's that's like cool, a lot of those videos have done really well.
Yeah, and I think like that's all amazing. But for somebody that is starting out right in social media, like you said, consistency. That consistency aspect, I feel like is so hard because so many people are too focused on like making it perfect their first time around. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, so they get stuck in analysis paralysis. The 2 biggest things of why people struggle to grow on social or to even start posting on social media is 1, they're afraid of what other people think. So they try to make everything perfect and blah, blah, blah. They get an analysis paralysis. They're worried about what Johnny from high school is going to think of this reel they're going to put up. They're afraid of what Aunt Sue's going to say. Or 2, they just don't know what to post. They don't know what to put up. The way you get over that is, I think there's a couple ways. The way you get over being worried about what everybody thinks about you is I want you to remember the quote, someone else's opinions never paid my bills. Someone else's opinion never paid my bills. So if you really want to make this goal happen, you can't worry about what people say. A trick of how to do that is just post for 30 days and don't look at the views. Because most people will start posting, they'll see they got 50 views on a reel and they'll be like, oh, I suck, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
For sure.
Post for 30 days, then come back and look at it. And don't even get discouraged with it. Just look and see which videos did better. I don't care if it didn't get 10K views. Like, what video got 500 and which one got 50. And make more of the video that did 500 and make less of the video that did 50. And that's the pivot. Yep. That's how you make those pivots, is you look at the data and you reiterate. But if you have your head down and you just look at that, you don't pay attention to the comments, nothing, that's how you can kind of tune that out. If you don't know what to post, a great recommendation is, what are you trying to post? Is it cooking? Is it fitness? Is it business? Is it whatever? And go look at whatever type of content. Is it interviews? Go look at the top 20 to 30 creators that are posting that content and what videos in the past like 2-3 months went viral. Write them all down and then circle which ones you think you can recreate, and then just make your own original spin on it.
That's
then
awesome.
You should have 100 pieces of content. If you're posting once a day, that's 3 months worth of content that you can go out and shoot. Head down at the end of the 3 months, look at which videos did better, and then make more of that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it's crazy that there is a true art and almost like science behind it, right? Because I think, again, everybody kind of looks at social media and they're like, oh, like you said, they just got lucky, right? They just, it just kind of fell into
They
their
went
lap.
viral. They got that
Yeah.
viral
Yeah.
luck, that 15 minutes of fame.
Sounds like you've
No,
heard that
man.
one before.
Yeah.
200 posts on Instagram with less than 50 followers, man. Like, I can tell you how many group chats the School of Hard Knocks post got set into, especially when we were doing the selfie style.
Yeah.
It wasn't the interviews.
Yeah.
It was just us trying to talk about business and things like. I can't tell you how many group chats our videos got sent in and getting clowned on.
Yeah.
And we just like it's.
And how did you take that, like, at first, right? Because obviously, right, you can sit here and you have this formula in a way, but how did you really take that, behind closed doors, that negative feedback at least?
Well, it's just because you got to understand why they're making fun of you. It's because like they're making fun of you to cope with the fact that they don't have the courage to do it themselves.
Yeah.
They're always going to be stuck in this box, and until they get themselves out, you'll never see someone doing better than you hating on you.
Yep.
So you never see someone doing better hating on somebody that's doing less, because they've been in that situation, they've been in that spot. So it's feedback from somebody. Those are the same people that will like our story, and I literally have people that have commented on like our 100K plaque posts that I know have like talk shit.
Yeah.
You can't pay it no mind. It's just like, and if I see that person in public today, I'm gonna be like, hey, hope you're doing well, brother. God bless.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just peace, like a warrior.
100%.
You know what I mean? That's how you really take the negative feedback, is you don't listen to it. Gary Vee actually gave a really good advice on this. It's just like, hey, as a content creator, if you want to stay level, don't listen to the negative or the positive feedback. Just make the content that you want to create. Rick Rubin always says, like, if you really just put the work out that you want to put into the world, trust me, somebody will like it.
Yeah.
Somebody will like it.
Because
Like,
you're doing your part.
you're just, if you make the content that you want to make, then just put it. Josh Terry, he's another creator in Austin. I think he's got about 1 million on TikTok or so. We did an interview with him like 2 years ago, and his advice to other content creators was make the next piece of content that'll make you want to make the next piece of content.
Yeah.
Just keep you
Like
inspired and motivated. I think like people, they get caught up in the negative opinions and they want to, I don't want to make content anymore because people are making fun of me. But if you listen to the positive people too, you get on this high step and you stop doing those pivots and being humble enough to be like, oh, I gotta change what I'm doing here, things like that. So you just gotta have tunnel vision, lock in, and go for it.
That's phenomenal, man. Well, dude, that's great. Let's circle back around to, you're at the point where you guys are today. I think about 3.8 on Instagram and 8 million across all platforms.
Yep.
What would you say out of all those platforms do you guys have the hardest time growing on? And what are your guys' plans to grow that platform?
Yeah, so I would say like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like those are pretty solid. I would say like and this is where like the media channel to media company transition kind of goes into play, is that there's a lot of power in newsletters for media companies. And so if you're a content creator out there right now and you have about a 10K base, like I would say get to 10K first before you do this and focus on this. But I would start a newsletter. And the reason why is because if you're garnering the social media following on these social platforms, you don't own that audience. Instagram owns it, TikTok owns it, Facebook, they own your customers, basically, your audience. But if you start an email list, if those platforms, like there's always talk about TikTok getting shut down in the country. If TikTok goes down, that's 2.7 million people that could be potential customers for our community, could be whatever, they're gone.
Yeah.
What do you do with them? So I think everybody listening to this, like if you're a creator with 10K plus, you should start a newsletter, just hire a newsletter writer off of Upwork or even a VA and write about something that would be really good information for your audience and put it out once a week and just start getting an email list. You can set up a many chat sequence to drive emails, people to the newsletter. Yeah. I could do a whole podcast 100%. On it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like newsletters, the best names in newsletters in the media space are on LinkedIn and Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And, I guess Reddit, but mostly X and LinkedIn is funneling tons of crazy traffic to newsletters. And for us, like we have no base on either of those platforms. And so right now, one of the biggest things that we're working on that's like more of a struggle point is trying to crack the code on LinkedIn and X. And those platforms are getting more video friendly. So we see just some natural traction because we're such a video heavy company, but we've had to invest in a lot more time and a lot more calls with people that are in that space trying to evolve on those platforms.
Yeah.
Which you've seen a little bit of success, but it's still a work in progress. So
for sure.
But
of course. Yeah, no, I feel like those two are probably, definitely not the audience that you'll get on TikTok, Instagram, but it's definitely a platform that you guys could still leverage to grow and scale that. But let's talk. Or did you have anything else you want to add to that? Because I do want to move in really quickly just so we can get a background about the School of Mentors.
Yeah, so exactly. I want to talk about the paid community.
Cool.
Let's give us the rundown on what that and people who are watching or people that are already on that platform. Tell us a little bit more about why you guys created it, and we talked about doing that transition from media channel to media company, and this being similar to that, but a whole community of people that follow you.
Absolutely. So this kind of goes along the line with our agency as well.
Yep.
Is that the best way that you can start building, unless you are going the startup venture-backed route, investors, like startup mode, that's a completely different game from what I'm about to say. This helps with that as well for a lot of those companies. But I definitely think that if you are just whether you're a creator, you're a small business owner, service-based, whatever, your biggest focus should be about building MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And so the agent, like as a creator, getting ad revenue from the platforms, again, that's money that's like, you don't own the audience that's delivering that money for you. That number changes every month. Like what we made on YouTube last month, if the videos did better this month, we'll make more. If the videos did worse, you make less. Yeah. It's not a great bit. You can't build a business off of ad revenue. You just can't unless you're like one of the top 0.001% content creators in the world. And so for us, we had to build MRR. That's why we started the agency, because every single month I get a check from all of our clients paying us to run their social media. So how do we actually do that for our audience, though? How do we make money? We've built this audience of 8 million. How do you make money from it? Well, so we started a paid community called the School of Mentors, where we invite, once a week, we invite one of the entrepreneurs that we interviewed onto our platform for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, where the members of our community get to ask the entrepreneur a question about their business, their life, career. It's a mentorship call. So whatever you want to ask this successful entrepreneur, you can ask them. And this is bringing access to a lot of people that wouldn't have this in a million years. Our first call was with the CEO of 7-Eleven, James Keys, in the community. And there was a young man that was on the call. He was a member in the community, and he's from South Africa. And he said that, oh, man, like my whole life, I was like kind of wired to go and just work like a standard blue-collar job and not make a ton of money. But because I was on this call with James Keys, and he said, education is freedom, not meaning college, but meaning
knowledge.
Just knowledge.
Yep.
And him diving deeper into that opened his horizon a little bit. And so he applied for like economic school in the States like the next day.
Jeez.
And because he's like, I don't want to go work just
but that like a lot of people think that well, he just made a choice. Well, that's a life-changing choice.
Life-changing decision that he
for
just
somebody
made.
like that.
And he paid $30 to be a part of our thing.
Something so accessible.
It's so accessible at a cheap price point.
Yeah.
But for us, that was one of our big main goals of starting this channel, was because we had really great mentors growing up. Like I had the Buc-ee's guy. Yeah. My dad was in the military. He was a colonel, baseball coaches, scoutmasters, whatever. And there's just so many people like that young man that they don't have mentorship. And for us, like if we started a paid community, we could really impact people that way. On the business side, it's completely opened up the door for us from a like monthly recurrent, like the community is like 50K MRR right now.
That's awesome.
Which
Congratulations.
is like, thank
that's
you.
Huge.
And so, our goal is to just keep growing that to 100, 200, and that's just one revenue stream for us. So if you're a creator building a company, I would a great way to build MRR is to come up with like, everyone wants to sell this one-off course, but like, hey, you could package it all up, give like a much cheaper price for it, and get people into a community, and they'll be paying you every month, mailbox money.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
dude.
right, dude.
No, and so how do you get, you know, obviously I know you guys get the people from the interviews that you post on social media onto the School of Mentors. How does that work? Do you guys give them a call, and are they willing and open to doing it for free, or do you guys typically pay them? You don't have to list the price. I'm just curious
No,
how that back end kind of looks.
So, business is a relationship-based game, and so if you were a business owner that, you know, you do 10 million a year, but you have no brand, and we've posted you on our page with 8 million followers, and you got 10 million views, and then so now your brand that was maybe at 1,000 followers is now at 30K.
Yeah.
What would you think of the School of Hard Knocks? Like, you probably thinking like,
Yeah.
well, like these guys completely transformed my brand.
What have you done for me lately?
It's basically
right?
it's basically like free marketing for them.
Yep.
Exactly.
It would almost feel like I owe you. Like I owe you something.
100%.
And we don't have it. We don't want to garner that sort of like attitude towards it.
Of
But
course.
a lot of these people, they have a lot of respect, not only for like, I do believe a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've brought onto the School of Mentors platform, they genuinely believe in the mission of what our channel serves.
That's awesome.
Beyond just us trying to build a 9-figure media company. But for like for them, they also are like, man, these guys posted me, like they got me crazy views and attention for nothing, pretty much. And because most of the people we had on, like we didn't charge them for the post or anything like that. So they like, for them, they love to give back. Like most people think wealthy people are assholes. Dude, wealthy people are some of the nicest people in the world. It's the people that like, because especially entrepreneurs, because they got out the mud. They've been in that trench work before. They love to give back. So it's a mix of all those things. Like we help them go viral on our page, send a lot of traffic their way. They love the mission of the channel. They love to give back to people like that. So for them, it's like a no-brainer for them. And so just through our network, like we have like a ton of people that we could get on a call for the community.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, obviously now that we have we talked about the School of Hard Knocks, right? We talked about the School of Mentors. What's next up for you guys, after those things? If it's in the works, if it's not in the works, if it's just an idea, what do you guys got cooking?
Yeah, for sure. So basically like scaling the agency, scaling the newsletter, scaling the community, like taking that to the next level. Our brand partnerships division in our company has just gotten super enhanced. For those of you listening, I won't dive too deep into it, but you should be doing your brand partnership deals based off of a CPM basis, not just most people when they get a brand partnership opportunity as a creator, they're like, oh, what's your rate? And they throw out a number. It's like, no, if you get the views, charge on a CPM basis. That's all I'll say. Mm-hmm. For us, it's really the vision for School of Hard Knocks, and it's always kind of been this, is like if you're familiar with companies like Overtime, Barstool Sports, Morning Brew, things like that, like big names in media.
Yeah.
What they do is they're media ownership companies. So they don't only just have their own brand, but they sign creators to their brand, and they have the infrastructure to monetize it, build it up. And so we're building a powerhouse back end at School of Hard Knocks for our brand, School of Hard Knocks. So, and if we turn our main School of Hard Knocks brand into an 8-figure company, imagine if we do that 10 times. Now you're at 9 figures.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll just do it so much more quick. We'll get all those other 9 brands to 7 and then 8 figures so much quicker because our own brand was the guinea pig. So that's kind of our next vision, is investing in creators like they are a company and bringing them in and building something like truly magical, like under the School of Hard Knocks media wheelhouse. So
For sure.
That's great, man.
Dude, I mean, it's so fascinating, like, to see what you guys are doing, what you guys have built in the space on social media, because I feel like there's a lot of people not doing what you guys are doing exactly, but like you said, right? And this isn't to call out anybody, but like Daniel Mack and other people that are individuals, doing all this social media content. I feel like there's just so much more behind the scenes on like what you guys are doing to actually not just monetize the content, but also make an impact on these kids. Like you said, that kid from Africa that went to go, register for school in the States, literally that next day, just from speaking to somebody that, you guys were able to bring to him, essentially. So.
And it's real quick, just to add to that, it's crazy because those guys, like you mentioned, right, that are doing their own individual thing, I think, you guys have a special leg up just because of who you're talking to, right? But it's not like, all right, well, great. Like their channel specifically to talk to millionaires, right? So like if I got to talk to a millionaire every single day, I would probably make millions too. That's not the truth. You still have to put in all that work behind it to be able to make these things happen, which I'm sure you talked about this whole podcast.
I won't lie. I mean, because our content is centered around talking to millionaires, it's allowed us to get into a lot of great rooms, and it's allowed me to almost like get the best business education that anybody could get in the world because of like the amount of people that we've been able to talk to. But not all advice is great advice. Yeah. Like there's so many people in different industries that they look at our business and our media company and they love to give their 2 cents or advice because they want to help out. But I can only take bits and pieces of it unless they themselves have been in the media space. Yeah. Like, you know, what am I going to learn from a finance guy about building a media company other than maybe how to like invest the money that I make from it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just about kind of channeling like where you're getting the advice from and who you should really listen to. For a lot of content creators out there, I mean, it's just something to really think about. And I think this is attributed to our longevity, is that if you really want to start a channel and a page, you really have to believe in like what you're doing, or else you're going to get burnt out for it. You don't do it for the money. You have to have a greater vision and purpose that people can get behind. Like if you want to be a comedian and you want to make like funny skits, comedy on TikTok and things like that, that's great. But what's the vision with it? Is it because you want to speak on stage and have your own special, or are you just trying to do the next thing to go viral? Because your longevity is not going to be here for a long time. You'll die out eventually.
For sure.
And do you believe that you can still love to do something kind of like you guys are doing and get to a point where you may, you know, plateau, not just like on the numbers, but just yourself? Like you may kind of like sit back and be like, is this really meant for me? Or I love doing this, but it's hard. Do I want to continue to do it? What's your approach to that?
Yeah, so it kind of has to do with burnout. And so I swear it's literally the purpose is why you're doing it. You have to have a purpose greater than you for the thing that you're working on. Like it can't just be money related because you'll fall eventually. Yeah. You have to have like for us it's just like we want to turn Hard Knocks into a 9-figure company, right? Yeah. So that gives us a little bit of vision. So that is something greater than ourselves. I mean, for most people, like I think just from the beginning of what you're doing, you need to have like a vision of where can I take this sort of thing? I know it's like, oh, day to day, just figure it out. When we first started School of Hard Knocks, we weren't even interviewing people. Yeah. You know what I mean? But we knew we wanted to crush it in business and things like that. I think that's the way you avoid burnout is having that vision. Yeah. I mean, of course there's days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I'll tell you this, I would rather, I listened to this from a YouTube video the other day. I would rather have a bad day working on my purpose than a great day working off my purpose. I'd rather have a bad day working on School of Hard Knocks than a great day working in some corporate job somewhere. For sure. Because I know that like when I do have the great days on School of Hard Knocks, it's a priceless feeling that I can never get. I could work on School of Hard Knocks 24 hours a day. Yeah. That's and if it's rare to find something like that. Sure is. Yeah. If you do, hold on it near and dear and gung ho, like you like there's your speeding bullet. Like you just got to put the work in now. Sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm sure there'll be a day where, you know, James is tired of doing interviews. Yeah. But that day's not today. So when we get there, we'll make that make that pivot. You'll make and you're on deck. You're on deck. That pivot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I'm on deck. Put me in.
I gotta put the hat on. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. I might know somebody. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about your story, giving us a better look into School of Hard Knocks and everything that you guys are doing. Before we wrap up here, I know we got a couple of questions for you. I'll let Daryl start, and then we'll wrap up this pod.
Yeah. So, if you had a soundtrack that you can resonate with that would describe your life, essentially, what would that be?
Man,
I know you have a lot of good songs, Bruin.
So, album or soundtrack?
So, like, just a couple songs. Yeah, soundtrack.
So pick one song. Yeah.
I know there's so many.
This is a great question.
This one stumps everybody.
This is a great question. Stumps everybody. Well, because I'm a music head. So
I know you love music.
I want to make sure I get this right.
And it could be overall, right? Just to help you out here, it could be overall, but it could be what's been playing lately, right?
Recently?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's whichever one that's gonna resonate
man.
the most with you.
Like,
Recently I've been bumping a lot of Boss Man D-Lo. So I don't know if you guys listen to Boss Man D-Lo a lot, but Gunna even said in a video himself, he just gets you in that mode, dude, to grind. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Man, I really like 6 p.m. in New York by
Okay.
Drake. That's a really good song.
and what are there lyrics that stand out to you?
Yeah. The line where he talks about just there's nights where I reminisce and look back in life, not because I miss some shit, but just because I want to live some shit twice, or something like
Yeah.
that. I forget the lyric, but
dude.
I really like that
Now I'm
song.
gonna play that
I
song
like
right
6
after
p.m.
this.
Yeah.
Hey, it's gonna be
Oh my
the,
God,
it's
I
gonna
love
be
it.
the outro
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, I really like that song. I'm a big Kendrick fan, but I do like Drake. I'm trying. Damn. This is a great question. It's trying to make me think about like a lot of
Are
the.
you trying to think of like the overall song?
I'm just trying to think about like what songs kind of like encompass like this part
Yeah.
in my life right now, because I do feel like we're getting to a point where like we're starting to feel that like, hey, like I always like to take the Rock gave a keynote to the Los Angeles Lakers, like, you know, sometimes sports teams will
Yeah.
bring people in,
Yeah.
and the advice he gave to him is like, I've always had my back against the wall no matter like what success brought to me, because I know like the next day you could lose it. And so I feel that too, but I do feel like we're getting to a point right now where we're starting to make it.
Yeah.
And that's why I said Boss Man, because
Yeah.
it's funny. But 6 p.m. in New York's really great. Like Drake says that he rarely celebrates anything, and I feel like we're the same way. Like we're doing a lot of amazing stuff, and I think rarely we ever take like the moment to. I think we've really only celebrated something like one time, and that's
Yeah.
when we hit 1 million on TikTok and we went to Disney World. That was it.
Yeah, dude.
That's it.
That's
So
huge.
I'll go with 6 p.m. in New York. I think
Alright.
that's a really good
Okay,
song.
cool.
It's a very like celebratory, reflective
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
I like that song.
And it's so funny you say that now, and I'll touch on this quick, because like, you know, being somebody that, you know, I feel like we've been able to like, you know, have a great relationship ever since I've been here in Austin, and you know, we would go out to dinners here and there, and we would get together and, you know, pull all of our heads together. But it's funny you said that, because I never really see you like you're hitting all these milestones, but I never see you celebrate much. When will that point be where you are like when's that next celebration? Is there a milestone in your head?
10 million will be cool, but transparently, I don't see us doing any like sort of celebration for that. I think probably the gold plaque on YouTube would be really cool. Right about like almost 500,000 subs on YouTube, so I think gold plaque on YouTube would be a really cool one.
And what would you do?
Probably just take a trip somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the company trip we want to take is to go to Barbados, but we've just been so locked in, man.
Yeah.
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 And I know this personally about you. That question kind of triggers this, where it's like, all right, when's the celebratory thing? And we talked about what drives you at dinner the other night. You know, what's driving Jack? At the end of the day, you know, your answer was my faith in God. But the one thing that did stick out to me, just as a baseball head, just like you, like, I'm buying the Dodgers. So
I don't care if I'm 30, 40, 50, 60, God willing 70, you know, you make it there. I will give my 1%, bro. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I don't care who in LA I got to talk to, man. I got to give my box seat
That
with
box seat.
with a hand in the GM room. I don't care if I'm GM. I don't care if I'm not GM. I don't care. I just want a little say and a little piece of that
Yep.
team.
Yep.
Just because I think it would be the most full circle moment to me starting to become an entrepreneur.
yeah,
Just going to that baseball game instead of going to the opening ceremonies and winning that competition, and that opening up my mind to just like, dude, you could do whatever the fuck you
Yeah.
want.
yeah.
And
I
And I'm rooting for you, bro.
I see
I
it.
am rooting for you.
I already see it.
Yeah,
bro.
I
already
saw
see
it when you
man.
told me.
I don't necessarily want to live in California because of the taxes. But dude, if I'm rich enough to buy the Dodgers, I'll freaking fly in for a game whenever I want. So
No, exactly.
that's the
Well, he's got.
I got one last question
last
for you.
question.
So, if you were to give a title to the chapter you're living in your life right now, in this overall book that we call life, what is that one word that would represent the chapter that you're going through right now?
I was talking to Josh about this the other day. I don't know what the best way to, but just called up to the league.
Just called up.
Just called up to the league.
Okay.
I feel like we're not on the starting floor yet. I don't even know if we're like the 6-man role, but I feel like we just got called up from the G League, and we're at the end of the bench.
Yeah.
But I feel like we just damn near got started playing in the league.
That's awesome.
And it's just that's where I feel like this chapter in the life is just like, hey, how do I get on the floor now? How do I get in the starting role? I feel like we just have been crushing it over these last few months, and it's like I don't want to stop. Like I want to just like foot on the gas, stepping on necks. Like we did an interview with Andy Elliott, and he said like pour gas down their fucking throats.
that guy's something.
He said, pour gas down their fucking throats. That's what he said. And I just feel like we've done a lot of great things up to this point, but I feel like we just got called up to the league, and we're number 15 on the 13, 14, 15. Josh James and I on the roster, and now it's like, how do we get the three of us on the starting floor and in the All-Star?
big three.
And then the next step would be the All-Star game, but we got to get on the floor first. So.
That's good, man. I like that.
Got to get our minutes.
I love how it all goes back to sports. For me,
Yeah.
you know, sports is a passion of mine. I think, you know,
I would say
owning
for both of us.
100%. And owning the White Sox is definitely something that's been on my mind.
They're probably
for a while.
cheaper too, right?
And yes, exactly. So we're working to get them out of the 120 loss streak that they're getting at.
Y'all need to switch some shit up.
100%, dude. Exactly.
Hey,
Somebody's
they're
got to
only
get in there,
hey,
bro.
3 games away, we're breaking records. man.
100%,
Come on.
dude. So I just love the how sport is impacting your drive and your passion, your purpose. That was the last question we got for you. We wish nothing but the best for you,
Blessings.
your brother, and Josh. I'm gonna be praying for you guys continuously throughout this process. You will always have a hand and a heart and ears waiting and ready to listen. And me and my brother, and we're just so happy to call you a friend. But nothing else. Hard Knocks goes tomorrow. DNA drops tomorrow. I can still say that I have Jack, Josh, and James in our corner, and we'll always be in your corner as well. So thank you so much for joining, man. I appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
bro. Hey,
Thanks
I
for
appreciate
hopping
you,
on,
boys.
man.
Y'all are crushing it,
I
man.
appreciate you, bro.
100%, dude.
I appreciate coming on the show. This has been a
Of
lot
course.
of fun. Hope everybody enjoyed listening in, and,
Yeah.
and likewise, man. I appreciate you guys having you guys in our circle here in Austin, Texas. It means the world.
Thank you.
I know we're gonna have a lot of fun together down here in Austin, and just a lot of the memories we're gonna make over the next couple of years. And generally, likewise, like y'all ever need anything, just hit us up, man.
Appreciate
you
it,
so
bro.
much. I appreciate
You know where
it,
to find us.
Real quick, I want you to plug, obviously everything. So go ahead.
All right. School of Hard Knocks with a Z on Instagram and Facebook. School of Hard Knocks with an S on TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere else. You can find my personal Jack_Dumoulin Instagram, Facebook, or at Jack Dumoulin on TikTok. And come join the School of Mentors, man. If you want to be able to talk to millionaires every single week, like literally, I mentioned Andy Elliott. If you want to ask Andy Elliott a question, Justin Waller, you go watch our channel. A lot of the people that we interview, we're bringing on live calls every week, and we got full-on courses, exclusive content in the classroom section for you to go watch with them. Come on in, man. We got a community of 1,500 like-minded entrepreneurs waiting for you to come and join. So I'll see you in the School of Mentors, and shoot me a DM on Instagram if you have any questions ever.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, guys. Let's go.